Welcome, everyone. It's 6:05 p.m. on December 8th. We're going to call to order this work session of the HRB PRD. And we're not doing public comment. We're going to dive right into the agenda here. Well, actually, can you just go ahead and show the agenda just for a second?
Sure.
When Mark and I were prepping for this one, we did talk about how we're probably going to have to kind of jump around a bit because the items are a bit intertwined, yeah. But it's helpful to have them spelled out here to kind of know what our main items are. So the first item is to do a little sharing out about what we heard from the conversations the homework that we all had. And so start there and then we can start getting into, and what does that mean? You want to go first?
Sure.
Brian?
Yeah. So I can say that spoke to 7 people. And I can say for certain that 3 of them were no votes previously. Keep quiet and do that. And they were no votes based largely on a lack of understanding. It was not less about expenditures or costs, but more about did not understand what was being put forward. I think to me, though, the biggest takeaway from all of my discussions and universally was having the ask be, clarity, repeatable, and ruthless. And those are my words, not theirs. And what I mean by that is that it's not, well, we could do, whatever, or we could build here, or we could build there. Be they options or no, but just being like, this is what we're gonna do. At this point, I feel like once we come to some kind of conclusion, we can do that. Because we're not intending for whatever we present on the 10th to be a buildable, you're not gonna take that and go build it. There's of course going to be things that are going to be worked through and worked out, in terms of what is the size of the women's locker room. I mean, those are the issues that I think the folks I spoke to were a little frustrated with previously, in that in an effort to reach as many people as possible and reach people where they were, I think we lost the vote. And so the options, when I described them just in a quick thumbnail, I would say they were, how do I want to characterize it? Okay with the amount, and I said 39 to 42. And then I talked a little bit about the bond and what we could do for a levy. And we can, I don't know how you want to just do the pool now and then the
No, I
levy
think
stuff?
we could share kind of
Okay.
all of the insights you feel are sure.
Yeah. The levy also, was just asked for. It wasn't, I think we had some, and again, I was a very much of a fan of, up to amounts and staggering it. Is there a palatability there? And again, that was another universal one. It was like, no, just ask for it. In terms of the levy. And then I would say, I would argue that, I would think that was my biggest takeaway with the levy. With the bond, it was, again, clarity, repeatable and ruthless. I did have some discussions with a number of folks about why no tent, those kinds of questions. And, again, my response was the engineers were unimpressed with our tent and the climate that we're in, the environment that we're in, and that it is not an appropriate solution in the gorge. And so, those are that again, just kind of some of the gist of some of the conversations. I think there also was some note about outreach to the city council and the county, and the feeling that And then this is where most were like, most felt it was kind of wrongly, but again, it's what it is. That the county and the city felt left out or neglected in some way. And that, between that whisper campaign and then some other groups and that whisper campaign, I think ultimately was an undoing. But looking forward, it was, early involvement, early engagement, presenting on the 11th, 10th, a cartoon. I don't know, like
Rendering?
a rendering,
Mhm.
thank you, of what it is. If it's option 2 cited like option 3, again, those are my words, not anything that we've come to conclusion on. But that needs to be presented on Wednesday. Whatever it is. And that needs to be the message going forward in all things, in all ways. Through the conclusion of the electoral effort. I think we had some discussions about this. They ask when I talk about clarity, repeatable and ruthless, it's also short. The brevity, maybe I should add that.
Can you just tell me what ruthless means? Because I know you said that it's your words, but
Yeah.
what does that mean to you?
This is what we're doing.
Okay, like, so clear,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Clarity, repeatable, and
Unapologetic.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Again, my words.
Yeah, yeah.
Unwavering.
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 Yeah.
Okay, yeah, got it. Not necessarily angry. Or that sort of thing. Okay, just clarify.
Of course, you're getting called out on Facebook, but they told me to make it ruthless.
That's, again, those were my.
Yeah.
The visual depiction, what is the layout? Then, I think those are my big takeaways from both the bond and levy. And maybe if someone else says something that sparks someone ad later, of course. But I think those are my big takeaways. The $35 or less, I think was okay, and then that also the computation that we're trying to work out of, 80% will pay less than $35. That kind of thing was meaningful. I will say there also is some next door stuff that if folks aren't on, it should be, just about a couple in the pool. And and this is just, again, me, I need a constructive response to the, I'm old and I don't have kids, so why do I care? And I don't have a constructive way to respond to them. I have an unconstructive way.
I'd say seniors are huge. Well, people and passively, and so physical therapy, being able to exercise at a later age.
But
For all the health reasons, so I think those, if you mention that to people who are older voters, that you might want to use it one day for that very reason, but.
Okay. Because absolutely, 100%. That's one of our biggest user groups. But again, there was that, and then there also is the petition that may be going around regarding old age pensioners and removing them from the rolls to pay property tax.
That's a state level.
State level, yeah, and that's years to wait, but, that was something that has been fairly recent in the next one.
I'm wondering about calling Martha. It's easy to
Sure.
forget folks online.
Yeah.
Martha, are you available to share your insights right now?
You're on mute.
Yeah. I just, they're unhappy. It's a lot, and just the political climate is a lot to be worrying about something else. they keep going back that we didn't share enough information. But I keep saying, well, the information is there. It was I mean, I felt whatever they were asking me was there. They just chose not to look. But they think it's a lot. And don't think they think the pool can still go for a while. And I talked to a couple people that do the softball, and that's still in their head as well, even though that's not the case right now.
Yeah.
So were you getting the sense that people would vote no because they're still angry about the choice about Collins Field, or it's just like they just want to make sure to keep bringing that up, like don't go there?
I just they don't want to pay more taxes. It really doesn't matter the amount. They really don't want to. It's not a priority for them. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, so they would choose to close the pool when it no longer can be sustained, is the sense you got from your conversations.
It seems like it. A lot of
Mhm.
them don't. The ones that I talk to, they don't use it a lot.
Yeah, on the softball side of the house, I got the tribalism a little bit as well. So where they may have leaned into it's the taxes or it's the losing of the field, now it's the discussion of, well, I was against it before, so it doesn't matter what you changed, I'm still against it now,
Mhm.
which is kind of hard but that's our politics in this world currently too.
Martha, was there anything else before we go on to someone else?
I mean, I also know other people who want the pool, but they can't vote at this time, so it doesn't.
Mhm. Yeah.
I tried talking to people that I knew that could vote.
Mhm.
And that Upper Valley, some of the Upper Valley is, we have to go to Hood River.
Mhm. Okay. Mike, do you wanna go?
Yeah. So I think some of the same things I got to from individuals who voted across the board, yes, some who were yes and no, one person who didn't vote at all but intends to vote this go around. So kind of a mix of all the things and still a lot of what we heard in the past. The understanding was a big component. And being able to listen and also inform at the same time, while trying to get that perspective of, well, the information was there. Were you looking for it? Were you overwhelmed by it? Like what was going on? But a big takeaway that I got was just, in essence, that there was enough complexity to it that they felt as though it made it hard to advance that supportive nature. Like maybe even if they were going to vote for it, they didn't know how to advocate for it. They did not know how to be that champion themselves. And so they would vote, but they would sit back on the sidelines and let everybody else fight it out over whatever they wanted. And that was even for people who had a lot of support to it. Like they felt like it really mattered because the other piece that the next takeaway I had was the personalization of features. I think, as Brian kind of alluded, everyone wanted to talk about what they cared about. Like, okay, well, here's what I want to see. Here's how it benefits me or my family, or I don't care because I don't use it, so it's not a big thing to me. But the nature of the personalization of why it mattered was somewhere that I noticed a lot of people not going too far outside of that. Like if it didn't directly impact me, I did not want to stretch much farther than that. This is my justification. This is kind of where I'm taking this idea. And if you show me something that I really like, then cool, I'm sold for it. But I don't want to take that perspective of, sure, it helps them though. So I'm good with that too. There wasn't a lot of communal kind of early on engagement, but as we talked a little bit more about the understanding and what that meant and what it looked like, I really felt like there was a warming with everyone I discussed things with. Like they were good, but it had to kind of be that initiation because of the complexity again. And the last thing that I think I really got from everybody, I just titled Future Stability. And it came from this underground, like, this is here now, whether I believe it can keep going the way it is, or whether it needs a complete overhaul or whatever, is we got to this stage which was stable and I need stability in my life. Whatever happens, I want stability again. So in talking about a bond or a levy, not understanding exactly the difference between or here or there, like, wait, is that for 5 years or is that a new tax rate? Like, I just don't want to keep thinking about it over and over again, which I feel like we've heard from Mark say, like, it can be a slippery slope of an ask and an ask and an ask. I heard that from a lot of people too, where they're just like, whatever we decide upon, I want to feel set and know that down the line, it's set. We agreed upon that now, and we can feel comfortable with that, which is hard to answer to given, our current work session of we're trying to work today and tomorrow, but we already know that there's going to be more work the day after as well. It doesn't mean that there isn't stability in the future, but I don't know if you're saying, okay, well, this is good for 50 years. Great, you're set for 50 years. But also let's talk about this levy over here, or let's talk about this tax code, because that's only for 5. And that's only for, that was hard to kind of conceptualize for people to say, I don't have the bandwidth to keep thinking about it and think about what it's going to look like. I'll talk about it now, but I just want to be done with it. That's the solution. I got a lot of feelings like that's how people would like to be able to move forward.
Okay, so for the topic of the funding options for operations, does that mean that your takeaway was a longer term solution rather than an
Correct.
operational levy?
I mean, it wasn't that they're opposed to it. It was that the overarching, like, I want something to happen that I can feel comfortable with and know that it's advancing. When I was like, well, a levy is one of the main options we have, and here's what it looks like and what it does. They're like, okay, yeah, I can discuss that. But their druthers would be, I really would like to not have to keep rehashing this over and over and over. Is a levy what we're going to do for the rest of perpetuity? Or like, what are the other options? And is that being discussed now? And, it was one of those, it's okay, back to the complexity again.
Right.
My 3 points all like intermingled with each other with everybody I talked to.
Yeah.
But those were my takeaways of what I got, and we can do with them as we do.
I mean, I think, yeah, like the school districts or, other agencies message are like, once they do the levy is that the tax rate will stay the same. It's just.
renew.
But even that renewal,
Yeah.
it's like, I gotta think
confusing.
about it again, and
Yeah.
and so that was kind of it's tough.
Well, I think it's fair to ask that renewal every 5 years is reasonable, because if the department's totally, if they're tanking with what they've done for 5 years, I mean, why do you want to keep paying it? So I get it.
Agreed.
It should be reasonable to renew it, or not renew it if they choose not to, but yeah. All right,
Okay.
anything else?
No,
So mine's distilled, most of the people I spoke with were yeses, I will say. So they just want something that, well, they're supportive of just, I mean, of just about anything, but they just want something that can pass. And even amongst the people who I spoke with who weren't as, well, I think one was a no voter, maybe 2, but, really, I think we just need to pick a number and pick a target, and that should be our month, like, so we can really pitch this to everybody, like, look, between the bond and levy, it'll be $25 a month, $24 a month, $23 a month, pick a number, what, average. That's gonna be something that sounds palatable and sounds reasonable. If we can get under $20 a month, that'd probably be even ideal, but I don't know if we can do both of those things, bond and levy for that. But I think picking a number that's a reasonable number that we can just easily pitch to everybody and explain this is why. I think, the vibe I got is we really need to pitch the public aspect of it, the public benefit, the public health, and the public safety. Everything else is moot in terms, I mean, it's the rec and the fun and the play, that's like awesome bonuses, but really, we need to sell it as this is a public thing, that's a public benefit. I mean, this is for our kids learning how to swim, it's for our seniors going to be able to get PT and exercise, and it's for adults who are, get injuries, and, all the reasons that we need to have that. So I think that needs to be the pitch. I think, the other stuff that was suggested was, this was pretty universal, is we need to be okay with closing the pool. And I think we need to, I mean, most of the people I spoke with had been around or were around when the library had its thing. So I think people need to walk up and see the doors shut sometimes. And I think we're limping along, we have, like we talked about in one of the previous meetings, we have the amazing staff that's willing to keep things going under some pretty tough circumstances. But I think it's almost detrimental in that they think it can keep being run this way. And so I think the sentiment I've had is we might need to shut the door sometimes for them to see, oh, this sucks. I wanted to come on a Monday and I can't come on a Monday. And so that was surprisingly supported by most of the people I spoke with. They're also, almost everyone was also saying, like, I'm willing to get rid of the adult rec, even people who participated in it. And I think not necessarily because they don't want to have the adult rec, but if we're looking at areas to cut, I think if nothing else, the adult rec people who were participating and enjoying those things, if some of those people weren't voters before, maybe this would, make them voters. Say, hey, I really like my, the cornhole tournaments and stuff, and I want to keep doing them. And yeah, well, we want to keep supporting it and keep helping, but you also need to kind of help support us and vote for these things. But I mean, I think you cut the kid programs, that's gonna be a big, there's a lot that's kind of opening up a big can of worms potentially. Although that would wake up probably a lot of the parent voters, but at the same time, that's probably gonna hit hard if we do that. And then someone also brought up the fact, and I bring it up now, is how, I know you guys, I assume, have we looked at partnering in a heavy way with like Providence? As far as, I mean, I'm sure that's been looked at in the past.
We've talked to them before. Most of the healthcare stuff does not put much money into the pools. They will for like services for physical therapy and things like that.
Yeah.
But not on a capital basis. They'll partner with us they pay us basically to use
Yeah.
the pool and things like that.
I thought Providence did things where they'll actually donate towards certain buildings in a community and whatnot.
I have not been able to tap into that, and from other people I've talked to,
It's tough not to crack.
it's tough, yeah, especially in a small town.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
it's definitely something the foundation could pursue, but that would be
Yeah.
like. On the level of the money they're raising, not like the full amount.
Correct. No, I know. It was just something that more than one person brought up, and I thought it was an important thing to bring up here, because I told that I had already assumed that it had been looked at before, but I figured I'd mention it tonight in this little powwow here. Because I think, if we stick, maybe Providence is willing to put their name on the building or something like that for a pretty, substantial donation to help offset the cost, especially if you can really pitch the public health and public safety and public aspect of it. So anyways, that was just another thought someone had mentioned. And then, I think most people, when I discussed that, like what had happened like in Madras, people are fearful of the idea of passing this big pool and not paying for it. And so I think most people want to see them interlinked. And so whether that means the bond only kicks in if the levy passes, or the levy only kicks in if the bond passes, I don't know how you do that or what, but basically interlink those to such a degree that if we get the pool building, we can still also maintain it. And while some people were willing, the idea of a delayed start on the levy, I don't think that was enough of a thing to consider starting it 2 years later down the road. I think really, if nothing else, kick the levy in right away and set that money towards, a rainy day fund, if nothing else, or handle to help support the school programs that aren't gonna be able to come for those 2 years, like the water polo team and whatnot, to help bus them to places where they can do, maybe that money can go towards that, like, which we talked about the last meeting. Most people like that idea. If we were gonna, instead of just taking the levy 2 years late, take it early, but help it to offset some of those things that we're losing.
Okay, I talked to a similar number that you did, a range of folks, but I tried to go towards people that I either knew or thought had voted no. A couple people who have quite a bit of experience in this county with measures. Met with one parent who was a yes voter who has a kid on the younger kids swim team. And I had a very good conversation with 3 people who I think were mostly no voters. All, I don't know exact age, but 60 plus for sure. That I think, well, all of them, I got a lot of insights from. I did try to focus on the 2 kind of categories of like the levy question, like which of these options, and the what do we cut, though, as you guys are saying, like it would meander into other areas. And there was a lot of people wanting to bring up the bond and like, what's gonna be on it and stuff. So for the operations options, um. Fairly universally, they thought that we should do the levy at the same time. So there were definitely a few comments about like, do the levy at the same time, just get it as low as you can, like as low as you possibly can, to still get what you need. There was some interest in the prepared food and beverage tax, but more as like a longer term solution, because that wouldn't be a solution, this next May. So kind of like keep that on the table, but have a solution for right now. The three women I met with who were of the upper age bracket, they did think that the gradual levy was very interesting option. And so one of them was a former communications professional, one engaged person like in the community who has been a swimmer, but like not currently using the pool much. And then one is actually a former lawyer for a county in California. So like really knowledgeable on this stuff. And so in the discussion about like the levy options, they did start to veer into like that, oh, that gradual levy could be really interesting. And then I asked about like, oh, is that gonna be too complicated to explain it to people? And the direction they went was kind of like, it would be if you got into the weeds, it would be complicated, but the general concept of apply it gradually because you don't have the pool right away, they thought was appealing. And the person who was a former lawyer was like, well, you could potentially even write it into the ballot language. That might be different Oregon law, but that was her thought of like, then you could really show it to people, like it's right there in the ballot language. It was interesting how much they did turn to that. Like she brought it with her, the previous ballot measures, like the language to make sure that she could reference that. So, yeah, I guess that's pretty much the takeaway regarding the operations measures. Regarding, since we did talk about the bond and like that topic, they said similar things to what you were just saying about like focus on the pool as a vital resource for the community, as safety need. Like, how could a river town not have a pool? Everyone was pretty explicit about like this idea of being clear about if the pool's gonna close and be ready to do that, if we need to do that, and really like communicate that with the public, because the last time around, it was just like, there was no clear consequence of if the measures didn't pass. And not to say like, oh, close it if the measures don't pass, but be clear about what the outlook is. If people do not approve the measures, what the reality is. Because one of them was a former communications professional, they had lots to say about communications, and she might even be willing to help potentially once we have this refined what our proposal is. They like the idea of comparing our operations dollars to our rate to the DALs, and about how we're like half of the DALs right now. So even adding on a levy, we would just pretty much be what the DALs is. So they thought that would be very compelling because of how, feelings in the river. And okay, so then talking about the things to cut. I think I'd say we did talk about this the least. But let's see here. So everyone who I talked to about the topic, which was not necessarily all of those people, but of the people that we got to this topic, they did like the idea of requiring proof of in-district residency to get the in-district price. One suggested even just like, you could just do it like an annual check, like the library periodically, you have to like, show that you still have an address in Hood River, for instance. yeah, the cutting youth programming was definitely not appealing. Similarly, they were like, the swim parent, was like, yeah, if you have to cut adult rec programming, cut adult rec programming. And I mean, they like it, it's nice, but what's the priority list? Yeah, and then just general sadness about the idea of closing the pool, but like recognizing that we need to face up to the reality and be clear with the community about that.
Do you feel like that I'm just trying to have this moment to try to characterize, like there's an appetite within the community to kind of have this sophisticated, I don't know, solution in terms of, grading the gradations of levy, and then there's this other group that I feel like is just simple, repeatable, unapologetic. Because I just think, and it just, again, it appeals to me very much, because it's like, we're using the money as we need it. We're only assessing what we need as the funds come in. But when in describing it in the most genial of terms, it was just like, no. Just a resounding no.
From the people you spoke with.
Yes.
Mhm.
And so that shifted my thinking, just because I thought I could at least get one person. But I got no one. Cause again, I think and again, the echo was simplistic, simple, having a simplistic.
It's hard too, because I don't know if there's a Venn diagram overlap here, but I feel like there's a fatalistic reckoning crowd as well. It's just like burn it all down. Like, yeah, let it fail, let it do this, let it do that, and then we'll, rise from the ashes maybe, or not, I don't care. And it's really difficult to be like, what other camps are you in at the same time? Is that like a final, solution, or is that like that's what you only want? And it's hard to figure that out. Like, can I give you more to get you out of that? Or is that just where you live? I can't always get an answer that.
Reaching out to those folks, I go so far, and then I'm like, Mark, hey, I get it, unfortunately with that group, I found it's almost never related to resources, personal resources. Just so we can be clear about that, it's, again, in my experience.
Right.
But I don't, it's never, an affordability issue. It's just, again, I'm angry, and I'm just gonna, piss on everything.
Yeah, this is my camp. That's where I live.
I think we just need to pick a number that we're all good, that's gonna work, and you're not gonna make everyone happy, but say, look, this is it, we've got it down to this number. And so when people come back at you with that kind of attitude, go, look, we're asking $25 a month or whatever it is, $30 a month for your tax bill on average. Yours might be less, yours might be more a little bit, but on average, it's only $30 a month for the public health for these kids, and just reiterate those four things. And I don't think whether you like to be complicated, whether you like to be simple, everyone benefits from 3 or 4 bullet points.
Yeah.
And that's really all we need to figure out tonight, is what are those bullet points gonna be? And I think then we can move forward. I think we can keep hemming and hawing about what everyone else is gonna say. You're not gonna get 100% of the vote. We don't need 100% of the vote. So we don't need, I just don't think we need to waste time talking about all those outliers.
Okay. Well, so for the first, this was the first agenda topic, let's discuss this, but
Yeah.
for getting to, which of these we do. I'm hearing, I think, that the only two at this that we've gotten to now is either the simple levy or the gradual levy. Okay, so
I think
the other two are.
sales tax, like you said, most were like down the road possibly, but to add that on the top of a complicated political agenda right now and where the world is, not the time.
Well, and that it would have to be delayed a year.
Of course, all the reasons, yeah.
So then the simple versus gradual levy, and we're not deciding on the dollar amount tonight, right? So it's figure out which approach. The counter argument I wanted to say to the simplicity is, or it's kind of a counter argument. there is also more complexity in some ways to the simple levy, because then we have to explain, like, why do you need the same amount every year in these next 5 years, even though each of those 5 years is gonna look different?
Yes, but the one thing that stuck out a little bit more when trying to convey that and just propose was Jace's point, which is during that downtime, this will go to support those that will be missing out. And that was an easy concept to understand, and you didn't have to go through the weeds at all. The gradual still required the weeds in different ways, even if it was just to justify, oh, you don't need it now, but you will need it then. And okay, well, what does that scale look like?
For example, I don't know if you all know, but White Salmon Valley Metro Parks District, the city of White Salmon and Bingen all have different agreements with us in the summer
Yeah.
to pay for their constituents to use the pool because they don't have a pool.
It's right on the website.
You're just giving that example of what we will
I mean,
need to or want to do.
like that, yeah, that.
That
they
may do, yeah.
I mean, I think, and if that's what we're saying, we're putting some more money towards to helping our people, our, to maybe go swim in the Dalles for the next year on the summertime at least, or take lessons there or whatever. I mean, I think that's all beneficial. And if some of that money, we don't need it all for that, but then we can keep some of it towards, I think it is the simpler way to go.
I think the communication part that was brought up a little bit as well, comparing to the Dalles rate, comparing to what we already see White
Yeah.
Salmon and Bingen doing, like that makes it a little bit easier for people to recognize. Okay, so we're not reinventing the wheel here.
Yeah.
There's already something that looks like that could be implemented.
Like the comparing to the Dalles rate, I think that's a pretty interesting aspect. And for sure, if we're, like Mark pointed out a few months ago, we're half of what they're getting, what they're charging.
Or any
That
county
seems crazy.
around Hood River County.
Yeah.
Any county abutting Hood River County.
Yeah.
Is multiples of what we've had.
And then what about, I think we've had pretty good consensus about doing everything we reasonably can to keep costs down.
Yeah,
No, like,
100%.
then there's still a judgment call of like, where is that line?
Yeah.
But so the simple levy might not feel quite in that vein as a gradually imposed.
I think you're still gonna battle against the 3 or 4 bullet points of what you get and what you don't get, because that's where the price point falls into play. You're still not gonna get some things because we're keeping that price point low. So
And I think to me though, that it just goes to with the simple is we're using it, I mean, it's just, we're using it to support Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
And I understand that the pool isn't gonna be built until 2030, whatever, I mean, like however we laid that out. That resonance of the levy is used to support pool operations and and that was okay.
yeah, full stop. That's it.
And again, I'm surprised. I love the elegance of only asking for the, as we ladder it upwards in as costs and things that we need to cover increase. That then those are the moments that we're reaching back out to the community. It utterly fell flat in my group. And then in just separate conversations, not necessarily with these 7, but they were like, it was just kind of like, no, just tell me what you need.
Yeah, I also think passing it now and then in 2 years, all of a sudden you get a tax, everything's a little bit more expensive. We're like, wait, what? And then I think there's a 2-year delay, even like why would people are gonna start arguing, well, wait, what is Parks and Rec doing now? Whereas if they pass the bill and their tax, it's affected right away, it's like, okay, there it is, and then that's not changing for 5 years. So I think just the simplicity again goes down to here's what it is. Then that's what you're working with for the next 5 years. And hopefully we'll prove in 5 years that it was worth it and you can renew it in 5 years, like every other levy out there.
And then I think what we should not do, I'm gonna say something that we should not do this. Is talking about, well, in 5 years with the levy renewal, is that the moment that we dissolve and reconstitute at a higher rate and remove that burden from the electorate to have to renew this every 5 years? I mean, as a long-term plan internal to us, that has, again, has a lot of resonance. I'd love to be able to go back out, but as we stand today, levy on full freight levy now. Simple,
With a 5-year plan of like, yeah, we consider the.
but we won't, I mean,
Yeah.
again, I would not want to share that with anyone, and I know it's recorded, and you can hear it. But again, that, to me, that gets into that slippery slope of complexity, Collins Field, where is it being built? Wait, why are you building?
Yeah,
it?
what are you doing now?
Well, even
Yeah,
other than that,
And then, you know, I don't wanna, cause we're gonna, between now and that renewal moment in 5 years, you know, we will have an opportunity to have an educational moment to have. This is how, if we want to, permanently increase our rate, this is what we need to do. And that's gonna be like assessed value on crack. Cause it's having to go through that process with an electorate is rough. It's going to be rough. Because again, Oregon does no one any favors with this property tax stuff.
I just want to clarify that I understand what you're saying. So I think what I'm hearing is, we know that in 5 years, there will be another decision point that will take pre-planning to decide what is that. It might be the levy renewal, it might be redistricting, but don't get into that now.
Right.
Okay,
I'd say it's a good idea not to get in anything till we see what passes. So then we'll
Yeah.
figure like we have 5
Yeah.
years to think about it and let's see what happens in May
yeah,
and go,
Yeah.
then we can decide what will be the next thing.
to the same point, what we saw previously though was, yeah, but what are you gonna do in November if this doesn't work out for you? So people are always kind of trying to preview forward and get an answer to that next question. But to Brian's point, here's what we have right now, and here's what good it does. And we will have some of those, here's what happens if we don't. But I can't tell you about 6 months later if this doesn't work out at this time, because this is what we're doing without previewing, prognosticating.
okay, so it sounds like the direction that we are veering into is the simple levy based on information, yeah.
Martha, you have anything to add? Sorry, just so. Okay. Should go ahead and.
Okay. Keeping that as low as we can, reasonably can. Having some clarity about how the money will be spent during the time the pool is closed. Okay, so do you need a motion for that at this point, or just it's once we
I mean,
settle on amount, that would be?
Yeah. When
do
we
you guys
settle,
wanna chime in though? I mean, should we to hear your input before we have a vote or anything, just because?
I don't think we need a vote at this point, and, I think that, yeah, right now, this is just kind of giving us direction on where we're going. And then, you know, we can kind of remind everyone when we get that point, what kind of conversation we have, or chiming in. I appreciate the ask. You are the elected officials, and I don't hear anything that I'm disagreeing with it. This is an excellent conversation amongst everyone, so.
I
That's the
mean,
big thing I
I
wanna
think
know
the
is
only
first.
question is like, when we get asked, is the answer now, we will be going for a levy,
And that's, I think the answer is
Right.
we have not made the decision
Yeah.
yet completely.
right?
Yeah.
But it looks,
Yeah.
like we're going for a levy.
So, but, okay. To push back on that, I see that because this is not an official decision, there's not a motion.
Yeah.
But we need to be able to tell people what we are planning on doing.
Mhm.
And that was part of this work session, is to have more clarity on that topic.
Okay.
And so if we can start saying, we will be doing a regular operational levy, we don't know the amount yet.
Yep.
But that is what the plan, that is what the plan is versus that's what we're thinking.
Right.
Okay.
The plan is,
Yeah.
start with the plan is.
Yeah,
Thank you for clarifying, and we can do that. When we discussed this, we said, let's come back at the very end and say, what are the 3 decisions that we wanted to
Okay.
answer and answer them at that.
Oh, so at the
point.
end of the night tonight,
And
we're gonna have.
we have another one that's almost the same
That's what
as
you
wrap
wanna
up
do.
down
Okay.
here.
Okay.
For
Okay, got it.
to make sure that we've got answers to all of
Just
these.
a quick point of order, this is a working session.
Uh-huh,
And I just don't wanna get sideways
Yeah.
with anything. We've advertised it.
Yes.
We're reporting it, and we're
Yes.
treating it in all ways as a regular meeting.
yes,
Are we allowed to come to decisions in this session?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
done.
Yeah.
And I concur, executive sessions and this isn't that,
This isn't, no,
but I just how we're treating this with Oregon meeting law and having just taken that class.
As a board, at any time, if the board wants to make a motion to pass something, they can, or to give direction, they can make an official motion and do that. The exceptions are a little bit around, like, if there was a resolution that needs to be advertised, or if there's an ordinance that needs to be advertised, or like a hearing or budget decision or something like that. But if the board wants to say, I'd like to make a motion to recommend this, to go on the ballot, you could do that. But that was not in the plans to do an actual motion tonight. It was more just to give direction. And I think that, you know, once we have an actual motion, that's when I can actually put it in, like, into play. I think for the, like, for the meeting on Wednesday night, if people are asking, are you planning on putting a levy out and this at the same time, if this group together says, yeah, this is what we decided and this is the direction we're going, I don't think that needs an official motion until we're ready to put the levy out. I think the official motion comes when you guys have settled on what's going to be in the levy and how much money it's going to be. And that you are for sure putting it out there and what it will look like. And I think that is, we're not ready to do that tonight.
Right.
So it will give us enough information, I think, to be able to answer the question and say kind of like Marcy's question of what the plan is, to move forward with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So there was one item that came up, it's a small item for board guidance. I'm wondering if, I think now would be a good time to take a quick pause and talk about that from the consultants.
Yeah,
And then get into the next meaty discussion.
I did put it in the notes at the
yeah.
very end there,
Okay.
but I why don't I just bring it up right now?
Okay.
So, we, the direction from the board, the last time we met, when we were talking about what's the dollar amount we want to keep the bond under. Actually, a couple times ago we met, but, it was, let's try and keep it under $44 million. And these are the things that we want. When we put everything in there, we got very close, but it was like 45.3 million or, you know, somewhere in there when they, in the year 2027, and they did all of the factory. One of the things where we have a little bit of wiggle room and is in a thing called design contingency. Design contingency is, what that is, that number actually it's usually estimated a little bit high, and then as you design, it gets lower and lower and lower as you get closer to final design. And eventually when you get a final design, it's at zero. But that is the dollar amount to be able to say, like, different levels of materials and such. So like what kind of flooring you're going to go with, or what kind of a wall construction you're going to go with, or like the roll-up doors, maybe instead of doing 2, you could do 3, or that sort of thing. You've got these different things where you've got the area. Now there's the safe standard is, you know, around 20%, and then there's another standard of around 15%, which is acceptable as well. 20% gives you a little bit more buffer to be able to choose the material. It does not change the square footage of what we're doing. It does not change like the actual like building or anything like that. It's mostly in like kind of the fit and finish and materials and such.
Does this affect the expandability potentials or anything like that, or no, that's a
No.
side thing? So this is
Yeah.
purely material.
Purely materials and how we build the building.
Okay.
If we reduce it to 15%, that drops us under the $44 million mark. And so we can say that it's coming in, I think, 43.5.
I think it was actually 44 something, 46.
Well, that was before I dropped the 1/3.
Yeah, they had it,
Yeah.
Okay. you're right.
But also I think the cap that the group had.
Was 45.
45, but anyway.
Yeah, so
It's,
but anyway, to get us under the cap that we had already said, we can do that. No, this was a meeting we had earlier today, and they're finalizing their slides to go out for Friday, but for Wednesday. The question was, we thought it would be a board decision on whether or not the board thought that it was okay to do a 15% design contingency instead of a 20% design contingency, if the result of that is getting us under our magic number where we want to be and getting just a less expensive facility.
Yeah, I think that is a very reasonable way to get our budget to where we need to be.
Yeah, I'd say especially if we're looking at other fundraising options to help support it in other ways, whether it's through the foundation or whatever, I think this is a good place to cut back.
I wouldn't think of it that way though, because the foundation's gonna work with the board to take the total amount, whatever that total amount is, and then chip away at that.
I mean,
And this is not so much with that
and
category.
I guess I would, if I were to think about it, it's like, we've always talked about trying to save the cost.
Yeah.
And so, do you want the most expensive finish? Like, what the countertops, you know, in your kitchen? Like, do you want it? I mean, there's lots of options and like how much that might cost and the types of products you might use and
Yeah.
they're all structurally sound, you know?
Ooh.
Yeah, so it just, it
That's a-
makes,
That's a dangerous, I 100%, I get
Mhm.
what you're saying. I just feel like the design contingency, and I understand what it's for, and, you know, in terms of raw material. We should just treat it as such and just talk about raw material, because immediately everyone's gonna go to, we'll put particle board and put, you know, I don't know, what is
Not a
it?
good idea.
Well, no, what.
Still have the 50-year lifespan technically,
But, you know, it's just, we just talk about it in terms of raw material.
Right,
Um,
right.
I understand
Yeah.
what you're saying, but
Yeah.
we would just get somebody who will, you know, do the crappiest, you know, stuff and make the price go down. Could be a response by some of the electorate, and
Yeah.
that's not what you meant, but I think I like, you know, the way Chase, you talked about it, it's just raw material costs vary. We're trying to take that into account in terms of our budget. We've reduced the design contingency to 15% to try to, you know, be hard nosed about what it is we're making.
I don't even think that 20 versus 50 is going to be talked about again after this meeting. This is more just like what we're deciding to do, and I think that if anyone sees the 15% number, they're not going to say, oh my gosh, they're skipping on that, you know, because I don't think people.
No, but there was that, remember when we did, there was some like.
There was a different, it was soft, or the additional cost or soft cost,
Yeah.
which was a 30% or a third,
And which is, you know, it not unreasonable, you know, again, the people thought that it was like, you know, we're throwing out the window.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not it when you're dealing with a major capital project.
and we're still working on the messaging of that, that is still in there, and that's not what this is.
Yeah.
This is something else, so.
okay, so
Okay.
Martha, do you have any, are you good with the 15%?
Sure.
Great. Okay.
Yes, I,
next up. Great, thanks. Okay, so pool repair budget and talking about those funds.
Yeah,
Maybe you have some stuff around since I printed these.
yeah, there was, we can skip it, but there was the slides where we were talking about what we're talking about when we're talking about operation funds. But, cause we kind of skipped on to that next part, but we can go on to that other. So. Is this what you're talking about then?
Well, we can talk about what this is showing here, but no, I'm talking about getting down into here, but this is like our summary.
Great. So keeping the pool open. The current improvement fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll start with talking about improvement fund. I did have Monica Morris join us today. Monica and I in our weekly meeting started talking about this, and Monica, of course, one of the things that we contract with her is budgeting assistance, and she said, wow, it sounds like you guys are talking a little bit about budgeting at these meetings, and so you know, she wanted to be here, and I thought it was a good idea to have her here too, just to remind everybody that budgeting, if we're actually talking about like what the next year's budget is going to be, that is usually done with the budget committee in the budget sessions that we're doing, but consider this kind of like a goal setting sort of thing. Goal setting is usually what you'll do before the budget committee comes on to kind of give direction to staff on what kind of a budget you want to put forward. But also I've got Monica to kind of help answer any questions if people have questions around this, because one of the things that we're going to focus on a little bit here is the improvement fund. And so I wanted to talk just a little bit about the improvement fund and what it is, because there's some confusion around how locked in this money is, and if this is like a true capital replacement fund, like the types that are set sometimes by utilities and things like that, like your sewer rates might go into a specific fund for capital replacement that can only be used for capital replacement, things like that. This fund, the purpose of this fund is to be set aside for improving the district's infrastructure. These two quotes, the purpose and intention, were taken directly out of a budget page that you see whenever we're announcing the funds at the beginning of the year. But I found this slide and I just wanted to show you a little bit this. The way that the improvement fund has been created over the years is basically us taking extra money from the general fund and putting it into the improvement fund. The improvement fund was never actually created by the board specifically by policy to be a fund that then nothing could be transferred out of or anything like that. It is still general fund money. It is a fund that we set up in our accounting system as a separate fund in an area where we put the money in our budget. We show it in this other thing, but it is still general fund money from years where we had a surplus or we did not spend the full budget. We'll, at the end of the year when we're going into budget, we'll decide how much we're going to be putting over into the improvement fund. And so when you look at these of like a restricted fund or non-spendable, this is probably more in the committed area of resources constrained by limitations. And it says the city, but that's the district. I stole this slide from someone else. But it's the our district board is the one that can decide where this money goes. We can this is actually a very good strategic money for us, to where when we're talking about like how much we should spend down on it, or whether or not we should use some of this money toward the new building, or all these other things. Just remember that this could also be a safety net for operations. Like if we did not pass a levy, or if we needed some money on the operations side, or we, right now we actually are spending more money on operations than we are bringing in revenue, and we are spending down on not the improvement fund, but down on our reserve funds. This is kind of like another reserve fund area. It's just the money is specifically in there saying that we need it for the pool. So the intention of this fund, Christy asked me to kind of break out the intentions of the funds for both our annual budget, annual repair and maintenance fund and the general fund and the improvement fund. So the improvement fund right now has about $822,000 in it. The general fund annual repair budget is about $110,000. The improvement fund, the intention is that these are budgeted and roll over year to year with the hope that we won't need it. They're reserved for major unexpected repairs. Examples like the boiler goes out, or we have storm damage to this building because this building is no longer insured. If we had massive stuff damage to this building, our insurance company will cover it. Pool liner, major HVAC failure, things like that. Up until last year, I don't believe that we ever really dipped into this improvement fund. We dipped in a little bit last year to fund some of our HVAC stuff. The budget for the annual repairs, the intention of those funds are budgeted each year for the things that we do expect to repair. So example is like the regular services of the HVAC, minor repairs, the filter media, minor systems replacement, things like that. Mostly under $10,000 repairs, although sometimes there'll be some larger than $10,000 repairs that we will put out as a capital charge to it. For the most part, that's just like the normal thing that we're expecting to repair on this. And so that's just kind of a little bit of a overview of what the improvement fund is. Monica, is there anything else that you wanted to add to that?
The only thing I would say, go back to that slide, if you would. We have looked. We have gone back and looked to see if the board officially created the improvement fund via resolution. And this was well before my time with the district and before Mark's time with the district. And we couldn't find anywhere where there was any binding committed restrictions to the improvement fund. So in a sense, then it is basically an extension of general fund monies because that is what funds it is general fund. And your general fund monies lie in the unassigned category.
Right, so how much is rolled over annually and who makes that determination?
Well, so whatever the fund balance is every year stays in that fund, right? So we budget it every year. We have
Okay.
historically transferred something from general fund into the improvement fund because it is treated as a reserve fund, your savings for these large capital issues. So historically, we have tried to put at least $100,000 from general fund into this improvement fund. When COVID came along, that changed some of our funds availability, and we increased the balance in this fund considerably during that time. And Mark is correct in that we haven't really needed to spend out of it until last year, in which we spent 43,000. So just it is an extension of general fund dollars that can be spent on operations within your district.
Was that 43K, was that replaced? Was that reimbursed or?
It was not. It was not.
Okay. So we just burned down the improvement fund a little bit and then we're just kind of rocking forward with that 822K.
We did replenish though, I mean, we put more general fund money into the improvement funds
The same year?
in the same year. I mean, at the next budget cycle.
Yeah.
So we took it down in that one budget cycle and we put more in it, so the improvement fund did not have to go negative on not,
Yes, stay there.
Reduced.
oh. We did not, okay.
We have not had a transfer into the general fund last year, or nor is there one budgeted this year.
From the general fund.
From the general fund into the improvement fund.
Correct. So that means the only revenue source your improvement fund is seeing is interest revenue, interest earnings.
Well, what about though and then the budget document would then also designate 110,000 for planned maintenance, and that's treated separately.
Correct. That's within general fund operations.
Yep.
It's planned.
I was trying to find the 110. Is that a combination of a few numbers? Because
That
The-
is what you had written in. I'm sorry, I didn't double check it.
oh, you didn't.
Yeah, you had written that into into the slideshow. That 110 right there, budgeted general fund.
Okay. So
I think we do have that though, for repairs and maintenance and products.
so it's 75,000
What we look back
in the budget for aquatics.
Oh,
And 35,000 in parks and trails.
Okay.
Well, that number there does not have staff in it, so half of Anthony's wage comes out of.
No, she's
aquatics.
talking repair and maintenance.
Yeah.
So
Yep,
if we
there is
were to
110,000. That is correct.
Okay.
If we were to pull some of the annual repair and maintenance, some operations from the unrestricted, unassigned, improvement fund, then we would not be replenishing in the same year, or we'd just be moving money back and forth, it sounds like.
No, you're correct. If you're needing to use the improvement fund money for operating, we would then do a transfer of that money, let's say 100,000, out of the improvement fund into your general fund operating account. But we would not replenish it back in the same, I mean, unless you hit on a grant or something amazing, right? That gave you a surplus of revenue. But otherwise, that would make no sense because why would we take money if we had the money to send over there?
Right, okay, thank you.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
what is the separate reserve amount?
So the fund total is 812,000. And let me be clear, generally, when a board will designate a restricted fund or a reserve goal, right? When they create a fund and they say, look, we're going to put away a certain amount of money every year because our end goal is X, right? It could be a new vehicle, a new pool, whatever it is. Generally, when that resolution is done up, it is spelled out very clearly in that resolution what the goal is, when you need to meet it, and what you do with the funds if you don't meet it or if you've oversaved or undersaved. We don't have anything like that.
No, I understand, and I guess maybe let me clarify my question. Understand multi-year saving for an intended purpose. Mark, I thought you had said something in addition to this improvement fund. There and the budgeted, plan, and basically I'm calling this planned and unplanned maintenance. I thought you had said that there was something called a reserve that is also an amount.
We don't,
had a,
we have the
well,
unappropriated.
unappropriated, yeah, though, that's probably more what because I think that we had the reserve, in the year before, and that was the thing the auditor had asked us to, move over, was that it? And that's why we moved it over into the unappropriated,
Right.
yeah. So unappropriated, is now where that is, and that is the money that we are spending down when we because of our expenses are higher. Yeah.
No, interesting that the auditor would take issue with designating funds as a reserve. That's a,
Well, it's state statute issues, right?
It's designating it as a reserve within an operating fund, right? Because that conflicts with each other. So if you're going to have reserve funds, then take it out of the operating fund and put it in a reserve fund. If you are saving money, which what a reserve is, best practice is not to save it within your operating fund.
Well, I will say too, that was the state auditor that said that, not our own auditor, so it made it through our own audit with our auditor saying that it was fine. And us doing it that way before the state was the one that called it on that, and our auditor said, yep, that's fine, then just go ahead and move it over here. So it was not it was an easy thing for us to move, but it was definitely not an obvious thing to anybody.
but a reserve fund isn't a savings. A reserve fund is in my experience has been always contingencies,
Yeah,
that are unexpected. That's why I was curious if there is, and I understand.
yeah,
We're double counting.
yeah, right.
We have two reserve funds in essence, unplanned maintenance improvement fund, and then a reserve. But really, the reserve in the general fund is a word that we should no longer use. It's just for covering costs that exceed budgeted amounts.
Well,
I'll let Monica vote on what we should call it, but.
You are thinking correctly in that the reserve is technically saving funds for something, right? You're saving it for an end goal that has been identified. It within your operating fund, if you have a bucket of money that you are holding on to for your unanticipated operating issues that come up throughout the year and you need to cover those, that would be your contingency.
so
Okay.
like
Okay, no, it's just,
change, right?
yeah.
So
so that, no, and I work very much with international organizations and the United Nations, and this is a terminology failure on my part. But I did have a very real question buried within all my nonsense of, did we have two reserves? We do not.
Yeah.
And I'm clear now.
Okay.
So then is the issue then we have planned and unplanned maintenance in this improvement fund. Understanding that we can move improvement fund as it's listed there into the general fund. are we now being asked to think about what is the number that we would want to spend before we just said, this is no longer sustainable?
Yes, yes,
Exactly.
thanks for walking us there. So that's kind of the next part, is just saying like, okay, because we have this amount of money in there, does that mean that we would spend all of this down? Or do we want to set some sort of a limit and say like, look, if something happens and it's over $200,000 or something like that, we're not going to give up the rest of our general fund / reserve money or improvement fund money because we could use it on these other ways or that sort of thing, just to kind of have that conversation of what happens. There's also been kind of the conversation of what happens when, if we get a new pool, do we need the same level of reserve fund with a new, of a improvement fund? I would argue that for a little while at least, yes, we do, because new pools do not necessarily mean nothing ever breaks. And just ask just about anybody that's ever opened a new pool. And it's great to have some sort of a contingency or money in there when you open it up a new facility and you're all of a sudden you're just like, hey, this dehumidifier system is not working with all this. And before you try and get into a bunch of arguments with the people that designed it or all that stuff, you just get to pay to try and like to keep your new facility open. So anyways, there's lots of reasons why we would still want to have some sort of a fund in there. Also, just like the flexibility of these dollars for us to use these dollars for just straight capital. As we're building the new facility, when there's no really other way for us to get like a good amount of general fund money like this. It's just trying to remember that it's not just, if it was capital only, we could only use it for capital. It would make sense for us to roll it into the new building or do something like that, but this is general fund money. It's special money. So it's money that we might want to think twice about before we start putting it into something else.
You know about how much interest we're making on it and the account that it's in? Do you happen to know off top of our heads, Monica?
So I believe last year we made 36,000 and we carried a balance of just over 800,000. The rate right now, I can look that up real quick.
So aside from how much we want to spend out of it, we're looking at policy designations, resolutions that weren't put forth before because you looked for them, and maybe how the board will go about spending this in the future.
I don't think so. I don't think that.
I mean,
I don't think I'd want to handcuff us with something like
Yeah.
that on a policy thing. I think this is more of us saying, how much we, feel like we would like to be able to spend down on this dollars. The only reason I was bringing all that up is to give you an idea of what we can and cannot do with the improvement fund.
but most of it is unrestricted and unassigned, you stated. So you're talking about using it for improvements, capital, or for operations. So does the board have to approve then what can be spent out of it?
So the question we're trying to answer is how long can we keep the pool open?
Correct,
Right.
but there are a lot of things embedded in
Yes.
this.
That context matters,
Yes.
but like that's the
So it's
objective
like,
right
it's
now.
like looking at like a few different scenarios.
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
What happens if there's a no? vote?
Mhm.
Right.
What happens?
But we started with what Mark showed us earlier that he took from the city, which showed restricted versus unrestricted and how that all gets parted out. So we are talking about that conceptualization as well, just for how this money will be spent.
I know,
Really.
I think I was, well, I know what I was trying to state there was that just that this is closer to the unassigned
Yeah.
available money. I'm not making any sort of a case that we should start a policy to try and move it up into the yellow or orange or red spot. I think if it's down here in the green, we can spend it on capital if we want to. I'm saying that it might not be the most wise thing to put all of the money in on a failing building that's falling apart. And it might not be the most wise thing to take this money and roll it into a new building when there are other ways to get capital money and we are getting rid of some of our unrestricted money. I'm just using that to say and that's a decision of the board of whether or not that is wise or not.
Right.
But I'm not in any way advocating to start getting some rules around these funds. I think that if you have money that is in the unassigned area, it's probably better to try and keep it in there.
Agreed with that as well.
Okay.
So with the sorry, I was really interested in that listing of repairs.
Yeah, let's do that.
And these are all just estimates,
Yeah.
and I worked a little bit with, one of our pool, people here, but these can definitely, depending on what happens, these can be higher or lower, and so I put in a range there, but just to kind of give you an idea of some of the things that might happen around here. This was actually, this was created a little while ago, so there's a couple of other, some of this was things like construct the new surge tanks and a new filter medium system. The two things kind of go together. Like if we wanted to fix our filter problem, we'd have to both build a new surge tank and do this. And so this would, just about wipe out the reserve fund in order to like do that. But those would be like more.
I mean, the only thing less satisfying than coming up with just a number.
Yeah.
Is to me, adding up the high and picking a percentage of it. Neither of those is very appealing to me, but it is I mean, at least with the adding it up 20%, and again, it's not about what it could cover, but it just allows us to have a methodology. Not hugely happy with it, but it's a number rather than just having us say, well, why don't we just have 500,000 in the improvement fund after we will fund up to 322,000,
Mhm,
which is the number we have, and then it's 500K left over.
mhm.
We won't allow anything to take this big of a hit from.
Right, and that we could do that too right now, or at least talk about it that way. Numbers out of, thin air and
Mm.
making round numbers don't necessarily breed good policy, but
Mhm.
I don't know, I don't know how people,
The high on that is a little over $3.5 million, the sum of the high.
so 10% we say 10% of the high.
350.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I don't know what that gets us.
Yeah.
But it's an approach.
Is this considered to be a comprehensive list?
I mean, no, I mean, that's the thing is like, there's other things that could happen here. This is, I was asked to come up with some examples.
Yeah.
This is an example list of the sorts of things and the kinds of costs they are. This is not everything that could go wrong with the facility.
The money, the interest,
Then it's like looking at the facility condition assessment and
Yeah.
like looking at their price for,
Replacement
for
or
renovation.
renovation, yeah.
the money that's generated in this from the interest gets to stay in this account, correct?
Yes.
Look at then, so I mean, in my opinion, I don't think you let it go below 500.
Below 500.
I mean, that's my
That's-
gut, I mean.
To
that's
be
just-
able to use.
To at least generate something, I mean, it's generating income, I mean, that can then be used the previous year or following years, I mean, so I mean, I think having any kind of fund where we're actually making some kind of interest rate on it's gotta be a good thing.
I will say, and this is no fault of ours, it's a state law. There are very restricted investments you can put government money into. And so it is a very small, it's not like a endowment for a university or something where you're actually like paying the bills on your interest. I mean, it's not insignificant, but it is not, I don't know if I would be that worried
It's not
about
market. We're not
about not
getting.
losing the interest.
Nobody was in Bitcoin.
I agree with the principle of it, but what, Monica, earlier you were gonna say what the rate was right now, do you know, did you? see
Yep,
that?
on November 26th, it dropped a little bit to 4.25%. In October, it was 4.5%, and this is through the U.S. Treasury, for the state, the local government pool is where this investment is.
Yeah. It was actually a lot better than I've seen it in.
This
recent
year, we've gained $9,000 in interest. So far,
Yeah, the pool historically does well on their investments.
years.
And sorry, just as a divergence from this discussion, what is the deficit for running the pool year on year? And I know there's a subsidy and 100% want us, but
Yeah.
what is that dollar amount?
Um,
Meaning what's the subsidy?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Operational wise, historically, the pool will generate through user fee revenue about half of the cost of operating, and the other half comes from property tax dollars. The year we're in right now, this budget is the first time that the user fees did not cover at least 50%. It tipped the scale to where the property tax is now covering over 50% of the operational cost.
Didn't you say, Marcy, something about maybe a decade ago, that was 60%? The user fees were covering?
It used to be a little bit more in user fee direction, so it was a little more like 60-40.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. About a decade ago or so?
Pre-pandemic.
Oh, okay.
The main reason for this is labor. The cost of the more all the raises we did to bring in lifeguards to.
Well, labor, I mean, all of
Yeah.
it, you know, like, if you think about like all of the costs combined, our user fees have not increased at the same rate as all of our other expenses.
But
So-
labor is the highest
Right.
expenditure.
I mean, especially following the pandemic,
That's what I'm
in
saying.
order to like right size
Yeah.
some things, we increased our labor.
So just looking at again, just trying to find a number and if 500K is it, 500K is it.
Well, yeah, it feels like there should be, I mean. I would like justification
Yeah.
for why.
Yes,
Is it,
100%.
yeah.
So
So I know you tried to with that, there's one concept there.
Well, I mean, what if we
But-
did 661,403, which is we maintained in the improvement fund, 661,403, which is the support that we offer to the pool for the 25-26 budget. And the 880, 833, or the delta is the number that we're talking about. Having be our upper threshold for the K. Yeah.
Well, remember that we're talking about how much we would spend on repairs before we close the pool.
Mhm.
Well, how
And
much,
So that's not gonna get you much in repairs,
Mhm.
get us much in repairs. Or the hope, of course, is that the bond passes anyway, and this is irrelevant.
if the levy didn't pass and the bond did operationally, what would we like to have for contingency?
An operational pool.
Yes.
So the question to me is more like, how much do we need to keep in that account? And I think that's a little bit hard too with this added context without like time to process that really of like, well, it could be used for this, or it could be used for this, or it could be used for this. And then I had hoped to come to a decision about that tonight, but now it feels like it's open a whole can of worms of, well, okay, what do we want to use that account for? Like, I had thought of it as it is used to keep the pool and parks going.
221, that's just the answer to some.
Oh, okay.
The delta.
So that's how I had thought of it, like it is for that purpose.
And so, and I think maybe one way to also think about it is, let's say we are at that scenario where there is a no, and then something catastrophic does happen. It doesn't matter what it is, right? And then you have reached a number and you're like, actually, we can't keep the pool open because we said 336. And what do you say about that remaining roughly $500,000 when people, I mean, maybe they don't know that we have that extra 5,000.
Well, it's transparent on our
Right,
website.
right, but it is transparent,
Yeah.
right? What is the messaging around, we are not using that $500,000 to keep the pool
I
open?
think, I don't, we change our minds. I mean, ultimately, that's what we do. But what I'm more concerned about is the immediacy of a catastrophic failure and the notion of throwing good money after bad.
Right, right.
And to me, that number could be 221. Because we look at, we want to be able to fully fund the additional funds we have for pool operations. That can be taken out of this fund, and as good stewards, we're willing to invest 221. And you know, or I could change my mind. You know, but at least we have a number and we could say, as good stewards, we're not willing to throw good money after bad. Because we want to posture this to be, you know,
Right, like the decision making, like, so whatever it is, the decision making to replace this item doesn't make sense
Right.
for the state of the pool that it's in, therefore we are not. I mean, you know, I think there's a variety of ways to message it, but I think that maybe one way to think about the intention behind tonight's meeting is like, what is the outcome of the message that you are trying to send through making some thoughts and more solid thoughts around what happens. The improvement fund.
So, and we're trying to basically just leave here saying, look, we give you guys carte blanche to spend X amount without having to talk to the board, but then any kind of other bigger
No,
amount.
no,
No, that's what, okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
This
yeah.
is just, so this is all of us.
So it's to be
Yeah.
able to answer the question, when will the pool close?
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
because does 221 become annual then? That's enough to make it this year,
Well, it's.
but now we're down 600.
No.
The difference
But-
becomes
No, it's only
661.
expended.
Getting
if-
down to a balance.
Yeah.
I got, okay,
Yeah.
but that would be the next conversation of, well, now, this year something else broke. Are you gonna spend that amount again?
No.
Because
no,
you
no,
still
no,
have it.
No, different, those are
Oh.
different
Okay.
concepts,
Yeah.
because what we're talking about is because of the unknown and the unknown nature of unplanned maintenance on a pool of this age in this condition, we're willing to spend 221.
In totality,
Right.
Out of the
How-
improvement
Out
fund,
of the-
Okay.
not that has already been allocated
Sure.
for
Planned
normal,
maintenance.
the planned normal
Yeah.
repairs, that is.
And that doesn't
approximately.
mean that 221 gets expended year on year. It's just
Mhm.
if it comes up, that's our starting point.
As far as the messaging goes, I think it's fair to say, look, we're willing to spend up to X amount, but also. It's a district, it's a public thing that we need to make sure that there's some kind of a contingency fund that we don't just drain. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, we might have 500K still after 660 after the fact, but look. We still need to run other things and we need to make sure the other stuff is protected. And so I don't think I think messaging wise, I think we have that in our favor. And to be able to say, look, well, this is why we don't spend it to zero.
yeah, but the conversation will come up. Well, how much does it cost to maintain the park or the recreational programming or this or that? When I know you have 500 or 600 left in after that spend.
Well, and I would ask them to then run for office and vote me out.
Well,
Yeah, because I'm doing the best I can.
No, well,
I mean,
no one should be running their account to zero.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just
Exactly.
basic economics.
So that's, yeah, okay, and we could come back to this decision to the 17th, we don't necessarily have to answer this precisely
Yeah.
tonight. Because I'm gonna restate the question that I don't feel like I have an answer to, of like. What is best practice for how much should be in there, you know, I didn't say it quite like that, but. Some guidance for, you know, is it a percentage of your operating dollars, you know, or is it like? We expect that we'll have to do these things, so for instance, when I was talking to someone about this concept. They said, well, wait a minute, okay, so if you end up having to close the pool. Aren't you gonna have to like fence, like put up like barbed wire or tear it down, like, because it's gonna become a safety hazard?
Attractive
And
nuisance.
so, do you have to save money for that? And maybe it's not that it would be. Torn down because we close it, as Mark said, like, maybe, you know, it'd just be like.
Yeah.
Held there, but there would be some cost to. What do we do, like, if we have to close it, like, we still need money to deal with that
I
situation?
mean, we start saving money as soon as the pool is closed.
Well, I guess you could
I know what you're saying. I
say
agree.
that.
Yeah,
but
I
it's not
understand
some
that too.
Justification for like what,
Yeah.
like that amount, what amount do we need to leave in savings?
Yeah, I think that,
Essentially.
and I
Right.
think Brian, that 660 that you were, targeting and having the delta, I think that seems like a reasonable target and a justifiable reason to have that be the number.
It's not justifiable to me. Like, I don't understand why. I mean, I understand the calculation.
Sure. Math.
I mean, I guess but those two things to me are not connected. Like, we're already getting property tax revenue. So why would you say we need that amount? Because that's not going away.
I know why.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
not- but that's just, I mean, that's what my preface to this entire conversation
Yeah.
was pulling a number out of your butt or having a really crappy, 10% of the high number.
Yeah.
I mean, all of that is not satisfying.
Yeah.
But it does give us a starting point and an ability to say, well, we would,
Right.
I don't, like, I'm not like pounding on the table saying it's gotta be 6, it's just.
Right.
It just seems like that at least, relates to and it encapsulates like what people think about with the pool, with the subsidy,
Mhm.
with the support that it gets from, and how this money could be treated.
Mhm.
Cause I agree, it absolutely cannot be spent down to zero. It can't be spent down to 50%. And I don't know what that number between 0 and 49% is.
Yeah.
And looking at, the subsidy or the additional support.
Yeah.
Again, it's unplanned. It is that unsatisfying notion of what it is that we're willing to spend up to. And being able to say, flip it on, look, as good stewards, we just can't abide by further expenditures because this facility doesn't warrant it.
I think
Sounds
we have
like
to
we're in the ballpark.
explain what we're gonna do within the future. If we're holding on to it and we're closing this, well, what are you saving it for then? Is what the conversation has to be.
So I propose that staff and I like what our check-in, put a little bit more thought into what is the recommended number to bring back to the board
Okay.
at the December meeting.
It sounds like we're in the
And then
ballpark of 200 to 400-ish.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, of spend down or,
Yeah.
okay, of spend down, yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Yep, we can do that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's-
So, well, now we're to the austerity cut ideas, so. It's hard to do, like, we might wanna show this, because Mike kind of brought up this,
Yeah, that's,
like, that there's these different scenarios.
Yeah.
Okay, so. This is kind of like a transition slide to like remind us all, there's basically 4 scenarios and we can't get through all 4 of those scenarios tonight, well,
Jahari
largely
window,
can't.
one of them, it's the only
What?
one we care about.
Well, one of them is a simple, if the things pass.
Green.
Yeah,
yeah,
so, and then. The one that's perhaps the most difficult is if the operations fails and we have kind of as like, okay, maybe high level discuss, but really. What we need to talk about most about austerity cuts is those other 2 situations. So and really it's the bottom corner, bottom right? If
Yeah.
what? No.
Sorry, keep going.
Oh, well, so if the bond fails and the operation measure fails. So we've talked about and tabled until the 17th now, how long to keep the pool running eventually, but we've had some good discussion about that. So then which aquatic parks and trail and rec services to cut if we have no additional operations dollars. Right? So, and that's the scenario which we were left with after the last election, which we didn't have answers. There were not answers for. So talking about what would we do in that situation? So, I think start there.
I think that goes with what we mentioned before, which is how much are we willing to spend out of the improvement? Hence how we were getting to that point of what are we saving that money for, because we're gonna pull from that if we don't have any additional money coming in.
or our, like, I want to say reserve, but the,
Unappropriated.
unappropriated funds. Yes, which is where we have been spending down, in the last 2 years. And we did have like a runway out that, I believe the last time we ran it, it was about 8 years or so. We could continue running at the rate that we're going, spending into the, unappropriated funds. But that. With at least a year, but we did that for now, it's probably 7 years and there might have been some other things there. So we just have to continue to run that and see what our runway is on it.
Mhm. The operations failing and the bond passing, I think we discussed already where the immediate closing of the pool still saves us enough that we can function in a lot of ways for a duration of time. The only question would have been if we tried to maintain one facility while the other one was being constructed, which we're not in discussion with any further. So that one is not as,
Or you said if the.
if the bond
passes
passes and the operations fails, we could start construction and we would close this site down and start saving money immediately.
Well,
Well, we
that's
have
a
to
much
decide if
more
we-
complication.
Yeah, if we move forward at that point, that's the, I mean, A right there.
yeah,
the question.
see, yeah.
Like
what
you're
the
assuming A
universe-
is a yes, first of all.
Well,
We have
that's
to talk
what-
about A.
And it
Yeah.
still was 2 years, 3 years out before you could break ground.
Probably at least two.
Two, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we'd have 2 years of discussion on how to continue without.
If we
additional
decided to
operating
close
costs.
right away with, but like while we're in the year of design, then we'd be saying that we'd be closing for 2 years, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just trying to figure out, again, we're discussing the bottom quadrants,
Uh-huh.
what we're gonna be doing out of the improvement fund or the appropriations that we have. Which is, we're figuring out that number here soon. And that's how long we can operate for.
No,
No,
it's not
not
what we're-
really.
no,
not-
we're talking about now what we're looking at cutting
Mhm.
if the operations fails.
Yes.
Okay.
Lower right.
Cause
Yeah.
the how long to keep the pool running is that's the discussion we just had,
Right.
and that number.
So the bond passes, we're still talking about that 2 year gap between construction when we start saving money on closing one facility down.
Yeah, but it's not guaranteed that we would proceed with construction. Like, that's why that's a question mark right there.
Of when we would start and what that gap would be.
Or if we would,
Yeah.
maybe we
Just-
say we didn't get the operation dollars, we can't afford to build the new building because we'll need the operation dollars. This was the conundrum, that Redmond got themselves into, was they passed.
And they built
And they
anyway.
built anyway, and then they tried to do the levy again and it failed again. And then they got to a spot where,
Burn down everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
So they could have made the decision of, okay, let's go back out and right size everything and say that we can't build because we don't have the money.
Yeah, no, that's my bad. I totally was not there in my mind of
Okay.
getting a bond and then not building. And-
Yeah,
yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
I'm back at it.
Okay. Okay, so shall we talk about the bottom right quadrant? For people to, their limit at this point.
Well, I guess, I mean, the,
Mhm,
you know, we talked a little bit about how do we craft the keep the pool running question.
mhm,
And that, you know, whatever that is, I
Mhm.
mean, we talked a little bit, you know. But if the bond, if we're in that quadrant,
Bottom right?
Yep.
Mhm.
I guess I just, do we need to have? I understand we need to be able to articulate what we would do if we got the bond. And what happens if we do not get I'm sorry, what we would do if we do not get the levy.
Right,
And what that would mean.
right.
I think we gotta let things close. Like the pool has to be closed, cut pool hours, so people don't get to use it as much, and then maybe then we revisit it again and they realize why we need to have it. So I think
Well-
as far as what we cut, I think pool hours would be one of them. I would say adult programming would be another. I mean, those are the
I mean,
easiest on the chopping
I
block.
think one way to think about it is like, you know, like, do you wanna keep as many services as possible, right? If the answer is yes, what should be the essential services that are cut to be able to keep everything that we have currently?
Right.
So maybe start there, you know, so like, I think a viable thing that you're saying is close a couple of days, or, you know, close, possible pool closures,
Mhm.
right? Because that helps save money.
Mhm.
Another thing out of a different bucket area, recreation, is adult programming. Is there anything from parks that you might think would be?
What was
Are
the,
we skipping over, I mean, are we getting into like that pulling up the sheet?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and so these, I would just want to preface this speech, you have seen this before, but these are just a sample of ideas. There are other ideas.
Yeah.
This actually hasn't been vetted by staff yet, either like our our supervisors and such, which it would be nice if and we weren't able to get them all together to put something or to weigh in on this, but I'd like to hear from the people that are running these programs also, like what their ideas might be. So, and then also there could be some other ideas for the rest of the board. So, but here are the other caveat to this, Monica really wanted me to to stress this, is that a lot of these things will take a lot of analysis to really get down, because there are a lot of things like cutting adult programs comes along with a revenue as well, that gets cut, and there's also staffing implications and different things like that as well. Some sensitive topics that we'll definitely need to get into that are not all captured on this slide or on any slide. So this will be quite a bit of analysis, and then going into kind of more of into kind of the budget, the budget discussions and such.
But I mean, and again, in general terms, just as the depiction will not be a build ready pool notion, these are again just like what would the if be, and it would be, deferring and decreasing park and trail maintenance, cutting adult programming, reduced hours for the pool. I even at that level, I don't think we had that last time.
No.
And so, I mean, to me, those three things, and again, I'm not like, is it $4 signs or $3 signs? If someone says to me, what are we gonna, well, it's austerity sucks, and, decreased deferred trail maintenance,
Restrooms closed.
restrooms being closed. I mean, and those four things. I mean, reduced pool hours. I don't know if we need to get much
If
more.
we don't have the numbers to really look at and pick apart, then really, yeah, we're just talking about, it sounds like, I won't speak for everybody, but it sounds like, well, I'm at least okay with having to cut some things and saying, look, this, just for people to see it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it boils down to,
Yep.
like for people to, if everything fails and, they're also, not supportive of any of it. I mean, the fact is, it just, you're gonna lose services. That's just the nature of public entities.
I think there's gotta be
It sucks.
a philosophy behind it a little bit, though. Is it just the dollar signs that we're trying to go more black than red, or to the essential remark that Marcy made, are some things more essential than others based upon the founding of the district versus today's district? Like, are we looking to be more heavy-handed with, this swath of cuts and something else? That's a philosophy question again.
Yeah, but I think given the detail or lack thereof, I think we could say, if this doesn't pass and on a broad level,
Everyone will be impacted.
no, we would talk about decreased deferred trail maintenance, park maintenance, locking restrooms. The adult programming would be eliminated or reduced. And the pool most likely would be closed for a day.
That's everyone then. You've hit every single part of the Parks and Rec district
Yeah.
in some way.
Mhm.
Everyone has felt a pinch.
Yeah.
Okay, so we in no way would say, we're gonna save this group and these groups are on the chopping block. We would still say everyone has to take their lumps. Like, we're trying to make it balanced in some regard.
Well, no, I'm not trying to make it balanced. I'm trying to find money. I'm trying to,
Okay.
it's resource based. It's not, it's where are the expenditures and how can we realize savings quickly?
Or additional revenue, like, remember that there are items on here that are additional revenue, like increasing the price
Right.
differential for out of district versus in district.
I think we're like, and correct me, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, like, but I think that maybe what you're trying to get at is looking at kind of a philosophical thing. If I could see someone coming forward and saying, look, this district was formed to save the pool and to take care of the pool, and then you guys added the park stuff, and then only a few years ago, you added the recreation stuff. Why not just give up on the recreation, give it back to the school district? Why not say like, hey, you know what, the parks was never part of this stuff, and just do the pool because we need a pool here in this community? That's an argument that you could get.
Oh, I hear
And
that now.
Yeah.
If you
and-
guys don't, then I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Right, and if you're I mean, like, and so I think it's like looking at the master plan and thinking like, out of these goals in this master plan that we have, I mean, like, I think, Mike, you made the point at, not two recent board meeting that like, we're over budget on like our parkland acquisition, right? Like, where is it that in our master plan, and that we want to think about like our goals. And maybe like compressing that, but
But I mean, to me though, you know, I understand that. But like, we need to be a real Parks and Rec department. And we owe it to, I feel I owe it to the constituencies to have, to the electorate, to do that. And that means green spaces, and that means, this isn't just the mistake was, the original sin was having this be a pool district. That was the original sin. We have abandoned the accumulation of green spaces, or done so in a very limited and a hugely creative way. That is not sufficient. And so that's where I'm like cutting pool days, eliminating the adult programming, reducing and deferring maintenance on trails.
and that could be part of a messaging
Yeah.
strategy, that the goal is to work towards
Yeah.
being a complete district. Therefore, we have to save in all the areas to be able to do that thing.
And that also allows us to at least maintain all the areas to a degree rather than
Right.
totally abandoning it.
Well,
Yes.
I think that philosophy goes along with the fact that we've still seen people throw things our direction. Do you want this? Do you want that? Continuing to try to get us to expand.
Yeah.
And that's what we would love to do if we could meet these needs.
Well, we've been doing it.
Well, we
swapped
have.
Parkdale Park, I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, I've seen it come up already in the Facebook comments and such, and I think that it's gonna continue to come up, like, why are you guys buying new land if you can't afford it? And I think, to me, that's always justified of, it was an opportunity and we can't not invest in the future. But we don't have to necessarily maintain it at a high level right now. We're not going to invest in, and turn it into what we would, the final vision of what we would like it to be. But we also, don't have opportunities like that all the time. And if we didn't do it, it would be gone forever.
Yeah.
So,
It's gonna become condos or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever, it's just.
but, it is still a difficult, not difficult, but it is an argument that we have to be ready for, and something that we gotta stand by our decisions.
Is that enough direction on this question?
I think so. We can crunch the numbers on just those three things, if that's what the rest of the board feels like that they would like to focus on.
Felt like four-ish, but
So what about the items that would generate more revenue?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
So
all for
we're
it,
trying
charging a
to-
little bit more for, I mean, I think, I remember Mark showed us that slide that really it's not a lot that we
Mhm.
get from
Yeah.
charging out a district more, but yeah, I mean, I think that's a reasonable ask, cause it's such a
And yeah,
minimal,
it goes to the being good stewards.
yeah, and I think,
Yeah.
expecting, asking for their ID, making sure that they're, whether there's a year-long or once a year process, I think that's an absolute fair thing to ask. And I think the public, Hood River public would appreciate us asking that of
Mhm,
outside people
mhm.
to use our space. I think that's reasonable if it's actually gonna generate money worth, offsetting the costs.
Mhm. And what about in-district admission?
I
You
mean, I
wanna
would
come
try
back
to
to that?
I would not, I mean, my gut says not to
Mhm.
up that yet, well, not with
Yeah.
all the, I mean, at this point,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. but-
Because.
But the
because-
other ways.
Well, but this would be if the
Yeah.
levy doesn't pass.
Right.
that there are areas
Mhm.
aside from our general admission
Mhm,
in the pool
lessons and
rates.
stuff.
Rentals.
yeah.
Lessons, I think, is something that we should talk about.
Mhm,
For sure, but lane rentals would be, that's our user group, so, lane per hour fees and, other user fees like physical therapy and those
Okay.
types of things.
So that feels like one, we're getting some guidance from
Yes.
Ally and whoever else about what would be the most equitable, most
Mhm.
pragmatic places where fees could be increased. That would be.
But
Really
but
good.
to me, though, that's under the umbrella of, and we are looking at all sources of income within the district.
Mhm,
I mean, it just. Boom, I mean, and that goes to out of district, in district.
I think those are all on the table if they're
Right.
reasonable. I think as long as you guys are willing to strike a balance or able to strike a balance between at least some, keeping equity as much as we
Okay.
can, but pragmatic, I think being the key
Mhm.
term.
mhm. Okay. So in terms of next steps on this.
Can I just check with Martha, who hasn't
Oh,
talked to
yeah,
me a
yeah,
little bit, just
yeah.
to make sure. Martha, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I agree with upping the prices on some of that stuff.
Okay,
The conversation that was just going on.
Mhm.
okay. And Monica, from a budget standpoint, do you like the way that we're headed with all of this? Is there any, anything else that you wanted to, add on, kind of next steps for staff and things like that?
No, I mean,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, I was asking
No,
Monica.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
I-
think you guys are going down the right path with the conversation. And we can, we'll work with staff to get some of this information and bring it back to the board. So no, this is really good conversation because you're talking about plans, not specific budgets, right? We're not in all dictating, any type of budget for next fiscal year.
Thank you.
Okay, so on the current kind of project timeline we have, it would be to finalize a few of the questions about the bond in
Mhm.
December and about operations in January, so. I think this kind of lines up well. I don't think staff would have it ready for next week anyway, so propose that we get a little bit more research and come back to this in January.
Mhm.
Have a little bit more clarity going into confirming what that proposal will be for the public.
Now, what's the big push at the next meeting in December here?
So
That's
December would be,
the reflection of what happens Wednesday and
Mhm.
where we're
well,
going.
and so, yeah, focus on the capital ask, on
Yeah,
the bond
the bond.
ask,
Mhm.
yeah, and then also
We should
about
land
the,
on a number.
what,
Land on a
yeah,
number.
the number, and then if there's certain things where we're gonna like, when we are going to collaborate with the foundation to raise a subset of it separately.
Can you remind me, March is when ballot measures have to be
February,
February.
Very end of February, so early March, yeah. I
Okay.
mean, it's somewhere,
it's February. Oh, official,
yeah, so, yeah. Um. There's a couple of procedural things that are like the third or fourth week in February, so
But everything goes out to everyone who's paying any attention.
in March, but in March is the day that it actually gets filed, but we have to do like the 805 form, which is, where we have to advertise the title of the budget for 1 week in the newspaper before we move forward and put the actual date that they call going in March, but final decision has to be made on like February, 20 something.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so bond December, levy January.
And then with Wednesday,
Mhm.
are we going to have a depiction
Yes,
done?
a cartoon.
It could be the board or
If you will.
people attending,
People,
yes, there's 3 images.
we're not down to one?
No, it's 3
No.
different views.
Views,
Images of the
they're
same-
renderings.
Yeah, rendering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
Outside, inside floor plan.
Awesome, awesome, done, that is exactly what we need.
And it will be recorded. What was the landing?
I'm gonna set up the Zoom, see how well it works to record it, and just try and do that. Probably won't be broadcast, no live broadcast or anything, but I'll just try and record it with the Zoom. Yeah. And, because Jace won't be there.
Yeah.
And so that way I can, and hopefully we can get as much as possible, but of course that won't be able to get the breakout sessions and all that stuff. But as far as the presentation goes, we'll try and get it all, recorded. Yeah. So you'll hear the audio of them talking and be able to see the slides and things like that
Perfect.
through the recording.
Great. Listen to that Wednesday night.
Oh, late.
Very,
Okay.
or well, Thursday, whenever you
Or
post it,
whenever I
Thursday
can
morning.
email it to
I'm just
you.
saying, I'm looking forward to, so Bob won't be there, so I'm really
Yeah.
excited to hear what happens and what comes from it.
All right.
I think we're to wrap up, right?
Yep, so that's where we're at,
Yeah.
wrap up.
Okay, so funding measure, approach and timing. We are at a good consensus about moving forward with the simple levy.
Mhm.
And that's May has been discussed all along. We didn't really discuss the timing, but no discussion was had about any other timing. And then the other 2 items essentially there's some homework for staff
Mhm.
and some collaboration with me a little bit, I think, about bringing back some more information so that we can get to a little more clarity on each of these items.
Mhm.
So the austerity cuts would be for January. Regarding the improvement fund, you didn't define whether that would be sure it would be next week or that would also be January. Next week would be, is that too soon, probably?
Regarding what?
Do we have to do austerity cuts until we find out if the levy? What
No,
happened
no,
to the
no,
levy
so-
first?
So
No.
how much money
Anything
we're
to
willing
bring
to
things
spend
up.
before?
A proposal for the board to consider.
I don't think that we need to have that at the next meeting unless that's something that, because I think that that's something that could probably wait till January.
Do that, target that, for
Yeah.
target both of those for,
Yeah.
no, the deciding that number for how far down we can spend the
Oh,
improvement fund
okay.
and why, what's the justification for that?
Yeah.
So we'll focus that for January
Yeah.
also,
Yeah.
okay. Okay,
Yeah, honestly, the progression we've made is getting us to where we can answer all of those questions about,
Yeah.
you know, what if,
Numbers.
and why.
Yeah.
But the big thing this month was getting a picture up
Mhm.
for Wednesday, and if we can do that, we're in.
Okay,
Okay, great,
8 p.m. on the dot.
yeah, all right, we can take a
Do we
motion
have
to
to-
adjourn.
Oh, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks, Martha, thanks, Monica.
Yep,
Thanks.
bye.
We'll see ya. Bye.
Do you have anything to sign, Kelsey, for this go around?
No.
Didn't think so.